The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation by Mo-Jiang Tong Zhou. An unofficial reading by Emm Wilde. Book 3. Chapter 12. Sandu, the Three Poisons. Part 1. He never did catch the name of that song. The buzzing in his ears was ceaseless. Blood rushed to his aching head, and the fever burned every limb and made every joint sore. When he woke again, the first thing Wei Wuxian saw was not the pitch-black ceiling of the underground cave, nor Lanwaji's pale and handsome face. Instead, he saw a wooden board with drawings of silly little kissy faces. It was graffiti that he had scribbled on the wooden headboard of his bed at Lotus Pier. He was lying on his own bed. Jiang Yanli was standing next to him, reading with her head lowered, but when she noticed him awake, her mild brows immediately arched in surprise. "A Xian!" she cried in delight, and she put down her book. "Shiji," Wei Wuxian responded in kind. He strained to sit up. His body wasn't feverish anymore, but it was still weak, and his throat was a little dry. "I'm back?" he asked. "When did I get out of the cave? Was it Jiang Shushu who came with reinforcements to rescue me? Where's Lantan?" "Jiancheng." The wooden door opened, and Jiancheng walked in with a white porcelain pot in his hands. "Stop that racket," he barked at Wei Wuxian, and then turned to Jiang Yanli. "Ji, I brought the soup that you made." Jiang Yanli took the pot and ladled out a bowl of its contents. Wei Wuxian beckoned him. "Jiancheng, you little shit, come here." "Why, so you can kneel and thank me?" Jiancheng snapped back. "You took 7 days. Were you trying to kill me?" "Well, did you die? Then who am I talking to?" "It only takes 5 days at most to get back to Yunmeng from Mount Muxi." "Are you stupid?" Jiancheng retorted. "You only counted the time it took to get back here, not the time spent trekking back again to collect you. And after returning to Mount Muxi, I still had to lead a bunch of people all over the mountain to search for the old banyan tree, then dig out the hole Wen Zhao filled in. You should be crying tears of gratitude that I rescued you in only 7 days. Upon reflection, Wei Wuxian was struck speechless. He really had forgotten to consider the return trip. "Yes, that sounds right. But why didn't Lanzan remind me?" "He gets irritated even at the mere sight of you. You expect him to always listen to everything you say," Jiancheng pointed out. "Point taken." Having finished ladling out a portion of soup, Jiang Yanli delivered the bowl into Wei Wuxian's hands. The soup was piping hot and steaming with a rich, delicious aroma. It had chunks of lotus roots and pork ribs, both slow-cooked until the skins were mouth-wateringly soft and pink. Wei Wuxian hadn't eaten for days while trapped in the cave, so he couldn't get back on solid foods just yet. Making soup was perfect. He thanked his Shiji, then hugged the bowl close and started gobbling down the contents. "Where's Lanzan? He was rescued too, right?" he asked as he ate. "Is he here? Or did he go back to Guzu?" "Obviously," Jiancheng replied. "It's not like he's from our family. Why would he come here? Of course he went back to Guzu." "He went back alone?" Wei Wuxian asked. "His home in Guzu—" Before he could finish, Jiang Fengmain entered the room. Wei Wuxian put down the bowl of soup and greeted him loudly. "Jiang Shushu!" "You can remain seated," Jiang Fengmain said. Jiang Yanli passed Wei Wuxian a handkerchief to wipe his mouth with. "Is the soup good?" Wei Wuxian didn't take the handkerchief, but instead dramatically puckered his lips while squinting happily. "Super good." "Don't you have hands?" Jiancheng scolded. Jiang Yanli chuckled as she wiped Wei Wuxian's mouth and chin for him, then cheerfully exited the room with the dirty dishes. Jiang Fengmain sat down where she had been and glanced at the white porcelain pot as if he wanted a taste. Unfortunately, Jiang Yanli had taken the bowl with her. "Father," Jiancheng said, "are the Wen still refusing to return our swords?" Jiang Fengmain tore his gaze away from the pot. "They are currently celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Wei Wuxian asked. "Celebrating Wen Zhao, who single-handedly slew the Zhanwu of slaughter," Jiang Fengmain replied. When he heard this, Wei Wuxian almost fell out of bed. The Wens killed it? Jiancheng snorted. How else did you think the official story would go? Were you expecting them to say that you killed it? Shameless Wen dog spewing nonsense, Wei Wuxian spat. It was clearly off by Lanzan. Jiang Fengming curled his lips into a soft smile. Is that right? What a coincidence. The second young master of the Lan family told me that you slew it. So who was it exactly? I guess it was a combined effort, Wu Shen said doubtfully. But he was the one who dealt the final blow. All I did was sneak into the Yao beast's shell and scare it out. Lanzan waited outside for it by himself and wore it down for 6 straight hours before it finally died. He gave Jiancheng and his father a summary of the main events of their time underground. Jiancheng wore a complicated expression as he listened, and it took some time before he could manage a reply. Pretty much the same as Lan Wangji's version. Given both accounts, it's obvious that you two killed the beast together. What's yours is yours. Why give him all the credit? I'm not, Wei Wuxian said. I just think that in comparison, I didn't put in all that much effort. Jiang Fengmei nodded. Well done. But slaying a colossal, 4 centuries old Yao beast at the age of 17 was a feat worthy of more than a well done. Yes, congratulations to you, said Jiancheng. His tone was rather odd, but seeing his crossed arms and arched brows, Wei Wuxian could tell that he was just being sour again. Jiancheng had to be feeling both insecure and troubled right now, fussing over why he hadn't been the one who had stayed behind to slay the Yao beast, and how he would definitely have done this if it were he that had stayed. Wei Wuxian laughed aloud. Too bad that you weren't around, or you'd get some credit too. And you could have chatted with me to help with the boredom. My God, I nearly died from boredom, whiling away the days sitting face to face with Lanzan. It serves you right, Jiancheng scolded. You shouldn't have rushed to the forefront, and you shouldn't have bothered with this crap. If you hadn't started it in the first place... Jiancheng, Jiang Fengmei suddenly interrupted. Realizing that he had gone too far, Jiancheng froze for a moment and quickly quieted. Jiang Fengmei did not appear reproachful, but his expression had turned from calm to sullen. Do you understand exactly how you want to stray with your words? Jiancheng hung his head. Yes. Wei Wuxian tried to defuse the situation. He's just letting off some steam. It's nothing serious. Seeing that Jiancheng's words didn't really match what was in his heart, and that he still looked rather indignant, Jiang Fengxian shook his head. Ah Cheng, some things shouldn't be so easily said, even when angry. Saying such things demonstrates your lack of understanding of the Zhang clan of Yunmeng's motto. You do not... A woman's sharp, cold voice came from outside the door. You're right, he doesn't understand. But what does it matter as long as Wei Ying gets it? Like a streak of purple lightning, Madame Yu swept in a blast of cold wind. She stood about 5 steps away from Wei Wuxian's bed, brows arched high. Attempt the impossible. Well, isn't he the perfect example? She exclaimed. He knows perfectly well what might invite trouble to our family, but he still provokes it. Sun Yanzi, Jiang Fengmei said. Why are you here? Why am I here? Madame Yu spat. What a laugh! I can't believe I'm being questioned like this. Does sect leader Jiang recall that I am the mistress of Lotus Pier? Do you recall that every inch of this land is part of my domain? Do you recall which one is your son? Is it the one lying on the bed, or the one standing there? She had repeatedly posed these questions for many years now. Of course, Jiang Fengmei replied. Madame Yu sneered. You certainly do. But what does it matter? There's not a single day that Wei Ying will rest until he stirs up some kind of trouble. If I had known better, I would have forbidden him from leaving and made him stay at Lotus Pier. Would Wen Chao really have dared to do anything to the 2 young masters of the Lan clan of Guzu and the Jin clan of Lanling? Even if he had, it would have been their bad luck. Who are you to play the hero? Whenever Jiang Fengmei was present, Wei Wuxian was forced to grant Madame Yu face and utter not a single word of retort. But in his mind he thought, wouldn't dare do anything to them. Yeah, right. I've made my point, Madame Yu concluded. Mark my words, one day he'll bring disaster on our family. Jiang Fengmain rose to his feet. Let's talk when we get back. Talk about what? Madame Yu snapped. Go back where? I'm speaking right here. I've no guilt on my conscience either way. Jiancheng, come here. Caught between his parents, Jiancheng hesitated for a moment before going to stand by his mother's side. Madame Yu caught his shoulders and pushed Jiancheng in front of Jiang Fengmain for him to see. Sect Leader Jiang, it seems there are some things that I must clarify. Take a good look. This one is your son by blood. The future master of the Lotus Pier. Even if you cannot stand the sight of him because he comes from me, his surname is still Jiang. I refuse to believe that you haven't heard the gossip. That after so many years, Sect Leader Jiang is still obsessed with a certain San Ren and sees his old friend's son as his own. Everyone speculates whether Wei Ying is your... You, Zijuan, Jiang Fengmain barked. Madame Yu shouted right back. Jiang Fengmain, do you think raising your voice changes anything? Oh, I know you. They left, still arguing. Madame Yu's furious voice only grew progressively louder as they departed, and Jiang Fengmain argued back as well, forcibly suppressing his temper. Jiancheng stood rooted on the spot, stunned. After a long moment, he shot Wei Wuxian a look, and then turned to leave as well. Jiancheng! Wei Wuxian called after him. Jiancheng didn't respond, already hurrying towards the veranda. Wei Wuxian had to roll out of bed to chase after him, lugging his stiff, sore body all the way. Jiancheng! Jiancheng! Jiancheng kept walking onward with his head down. Wei Wuxian flew into a rage and pounced on him, seizing him by the neck as he did. Answer me if you hear me! You're looking for a fight? Get the hell back to bed and stay there, Jiancheng yelled. Nope, we're going to clear the air and set things straight, Wei Wuxian said. Don't you believe any of that nonsensical bullshit. What nonsensical bullshit? Jiancheng asked frostily. The things that foul the mouth when said out loud, Wei Wuxian said. My mom and dad are real people and have names. I can't stand when people blindly assign me to other families. He put his arm around Jiancheng's shoulders and dragged him over to the veranda railings to sit down. Let's talk openly instead of bottling these awkward feelings up. You are Jiang Shushu's son, the future head of the Jiang clan. Of course Jiang Shushu is stricter with you. Jiancheng regarded him askance. But I'm different, Wei Wuxian continued. I'm someone else's son. My mom and dad were both good friends with Jiang Shushu, so of course he's going to be nicer to me. You understand this logic, right? Jiancheng humphed. He's not strict with me. He just doesn't like me. Who doesn't like their own son? Stop imagining things, Wei Wuxian argued. I'll beat every single one of those rumor-spreading gossip hounds when I see them. Beat them so hard that their own moms won't recognize them. It's true, though, Jiancheng persisted. He doesn't like my mom, and so by proxy, he doesn't like me either. This was difficult to dispute. The entire cultivation world knew that Yu San Nianzi had been Jiang Fengmain's peer in the cultivation world from a young age. They had known each other since their teenage years. Jiang Fengmain was temperate in character, while Yu Zijuan was assertive and stern. While they were well matched in status, they had little significant interaction, so no one assumed that they would pair up. And then Sangse Senren emerged from the Immortals Mountain and joined the world. She established a friendship with Jiang Fengmain while passing through Yunmeng. They had great mutual admiration for each other's skills, and night hunted together many times. Speculation abounded that Sansei Senren was extremely likely to become the next mistress of Lotus Pier. To everyone's surprise, it was around this time that the Yu clan of Meishan proposed a marriage alliance with the Jiang clan of Yunmeng. While the sect leader of the Jiang clan at the time was quite interested in this union, Jiang Fengmain was not inclined to agree. He disliked Yu Ziyuan's character and personality, and did not think the two of them would be a good match. He politely declined the proposal many times, but the Yu clan of Meishan exerted tremendous pressure on him from multiple angles. He was young and unestablished at the time, and soon after, Sansei Sanren became a cultivation partner with Wei Chanze, Jiang Fengmein's most loyal servant. Although Jiang Fengmein and Yu Ziyuan did marry, they ended up a begrudging couple. They lived separately year-round and never saw eye to eye. Other than consolidating the power of the two clans, it was hard to see what else was gained from this union. The founding father of the Jiang clan of Yunmeng, Jiang Qi, came from a knight-errant background. The family was exuberant, honest, magnanimous, and carefree in its way, all of which were in complete opposition to Madame Yu's spirit. Jian Cheng took after his mother in looks and personality, which had never been to Jian Fengmein's liking. He had tried to educate Jiang Cheng in the myriad of ways, but it had all been for naught. This was why it always appeared as though he did not favor his son. Jian Cheng shrugged off Wei Wuxian's hand and stood up. I know that he doesn't like my personality, that I'm not the successor that he wants, he ranted. He doesn't think that I'm worthy of being the family head, or that I understand the Jiang family motto or the precepts, that I've not a single bit of Jiang character in my bones. I know. Voice rising higher, Jian Cheng continued. You and Lan Wangji slew the Jianwu of Slaughter together. What a brave and bloody fight. How commendable. But what about me? Teeth clenched, he slammed a fist into the pillar on the veranda. I ran around for days, too. I ran myself ragged, without even a single second of rest. What do the family precepts matter? Wei Wuxian countered. Do we have to follow them just because they exist? Look at the precepts of the Lan clan. There are over 3,000 of them. If you obey every single one of them, how will you live? He hopped down from the wooden railing. And does a family head have to exemplify every family trait? Obey every family precept? The Jiang clan of Yunmeng has had so many family heads in its history. I refuse to believe that they were all the same. Even the Lan clan of Guzu produced an unusual case with Lan Yi, but who dares deny her strength and position? Who dares not count her among the renowned cultivators of the Lan clan? Who could deny her killing cord technique? Jian Cheng was quiet, but he seemed to have calmed down a bit. Wei Wuxian put an arm round his shoulder again. When you become the family head, I'll be your subordinate. We'll be like our fathers. Who cares about the twin jades of Lan? Our Yunmeng has twin heroes. So just shut up. Who said that you're not worthy of being family head? No one's allowed to say that, not even you. Say it and you're asking to get beat. Jian Cheng snorted. In your current state, who are you gonna beat? He smacked Wei Wuxian's chest. While the brand had already been treated with salve and bandages, it was still hurt to have it smacked so suddenly. Wei Wuxian roared. Jian Cheng, you're dead. Jian Cheng dodged his strike. Now you're in pain. Why did you play the hero then? Serves you right. That'll teach you. Was I playing the hero? The situation forced my hand. I acted before I thought, Wei Wuxian countered. Stop running and I'll spare your little life. I'm gonna ask you something. There was a perfume sachet stuffed in my belt, an empty one. Have you seen it? The one Mainman gave you? Jian Cheng asked. Nope. Wei Wuxian let out a disappointing noise. What a shame. I'll ask her for another one next time. Jian Cheng frowned. There you go again. You don't actually like her, do you? The girl's looks are okay, but her background's nothing of note. She'll probably be the daughter of some servant and might not even be a sect disciple. What's wrong with servants? Wei Wuxian asked. Aren't I the son of a servant too? Are you two the same? Jian Cheng was incredulous. Who is a servant like you? One whose mistress peels them lotus seeds and makes them soup. I haven't even gotten to taste that soup yet. If you want more, just ask Gigi to make more, Wei Wuxian said. By the way, you mentioned Lanzan earlier. Did he not leave a message for me? Did anyone find his brother yet? How are things at his place? You were hoping he left a message for you? Jian Cheng snorted. You're lucky he didn't leave you with a stab wound. He went back home. Lan Chen still hasn't been found, and Lan Ren is in a terrible fix. Wei Wuxian continued his endless questions. What about the Lan family head? How is he? Passed away, Jiancheng replied. Wei Wuxian blinked. Passed away? The image of Lan Wangji's tear-streaked face, illuminated by the glow of the firelight, flashed before his mind. How's Lanzan doing? He blurted. How else could he be? Jiancheng said. He went back home. Father offered to send escorts with him, but he declined. Judging by how he looked at the time, he probably saw it coming. After all, with things the way they are now, no one's family is faring better than anyone else's. The two sat back down on the railing again. So what's going on with Lan Chen? Wei Wuxian asked. Didn't the Wens burn their library pavilion? The Lan's family managed to salvage some of their tens of thousands of ancient scrolls and musical scores. What they could save was probably handed to Lan Chen so he could run off and protect it. Otherwise, everything would be gone. That's what everyone's guessing. Wei Wuxian gazed at the sky for a moment, and then commented, Disgusting. Yeah, Jiancheng agreed. The winds are disgusting beyond belief. Wei Wuxian started to run his mouth. How long are they going to keep this up? We have so many clans. Can we not just form an alliance and... Just then, a chorus of footsteps approached. A group of boys in light training robes dashed across the long veranda like monkeys, shouting as they ran. Da Xiaozhang! Liu Shidi cried out in delight. Da Xiaozhang! You've been resurrected! Hey, what do you mean resurrected? Wei Wuxian was indignant. I was never dead! Da Xiaozhang! We heard that you slew a huge 4-century-old Yao beast. Is that true? Were you really the one who killed it? What I want to know is whether it's true that you didn't eat for 7 days. You haven't secretly been studying Anidia behind our backs? How big was the genre of slaughter? Could it fit in Lotus Pier? The genre of slaughter is just a tortoise, right? Da Xiaozhang, you were with Lan Wangji from Guzu the whole 7 days, right? He actually didn't beat you to death? The somewhat solemn atmosphere was instantly shattered into a complete circus. Wei Wuxian's injuries weren't all that serious. It was simply that they had not been treated with medicine in a timely manner, and he had exhausted himself on an empty stomach. But he had a strong constitution, so once the brand on his chest had some salve on it, it soon stopped burning. With only a few days of lying around, he was full of energy again. After the incident with the Zhanwu of slaughter at Mount Muxi, the educational office the Wen clan established at Qishen was completely dismantled. Wen Chao's side wasn't pursuing the matter further for the time being, and Madame Yu took this chance to give Wei Wuxian a good tongue-lashing. She ordered him to never set so much as half a foot out of Lotus Pier's gates. He was forbidden from ever rowing boats or swimming in the lake, and could only while away the days shooting kites with Jiancheng juniors and sect disciples. No matter how fun a game may be, playing it every day grew dull. After half a month, the boy's interests waned further and further. Wei Wuxian couldn't find it in himself to be excited either, and let his shots sail off wherever they wanted. For the first time ever, he let Jiancheng take first place a number of times. That day, after the last round of shooting had concluded, Wei Wuxian cupped his hands over his eyes and gazed at the remnant rays of the setting sun. Let's stop and pack up, head home for dinner. So early today? Jiancheng asked. Wei Wuxian chucked his bow away and sat on the ground, looking downcast and frustrated. I'm not shooting anymore. It's boring. Who was placed last? Go on and collect the kites with Liu Shidi. One of the boys said, Da Xiaozhang, you're so sly. You always make other people do pickups. What a cheat. Wei Wuxian shrugged. I've got no choice. Madame Yu won't let me leave the grounds, you know. She's at home right now, isn't she? Who knows? Maybe Jinshu and Yinshu are crouched in some corner, waiting so they can report me at a moment's notice. If I set a toe outside, Madame Yu will flay me alive with her lash. The Shidi who came in last when shooting joked around before they left, laughing, to go collect kites. Jiancheng stood and Wei Wuxian sat, and the two chatted for a moment. Jiang Shushu left this morning, but why is he not back yet? Will he make it back in time for dinner? Jiangfeng Main and Madame Yu had had another fight this morning. Though fight wasn't quite the word for it. It was Madame Yu raging on her own, while Jiangfeng Main mostly maintained his manners throughout. "He's gone to the Wens again for our swords, hasn't he?" Jiancheng replied, revulsion showing on his face. "Whenever I remember that my Sandu is being manhandled by some Wen dog, I just—" "Too bad our swords haven't accumulated any qi," Wei commented. "If they could seal themselves, no one would stand a chance at prying them out of their sheaths." "If you cultivate for another 80 years, maybe," Jiancheng commented. Suddenly, the Shidi who'd gone on kite-fetching duty rushed back into the drill grounds of Lotus Pier, crying in alarm. "We've got a big problem! Da Shijiang! Shijiang! Bad news!" Wei Wuxian immediately stood up. "What's going on?" "Where's Liu Shidi?" Jiancheng demanded. "Why are we down one person?" Liu Shidi had been the first one out the door earlier, but was now nowhere to be seen. One of the boys said, still out of breath, "Liu Shidi was taken." "Taken?" Wei Wuxian picked up his bow. With a weapon in hand, he demanded, "Who took him? Why was he taken?" "I don't know," that boy cried. "I don't know why he was taken." Now Jiancheng was anxious as well. "What do you mean you don't know why?" "Let's not lose our heads," Wei Wuxian said. "Tell us exactly what happened." Just when we went to go out collecting the kites, they'd all fallen way over there, super far away," the boy began. "We went over and saw over a dozen people. They're from the Wen clan. They're dressed in their uniforms. There are sect disciples and servants, and the one leading them is a young woman. She had one of the kites in her hand with an arrow in it. When she saw us, she asked us who the kite belonged to." Another boy said, "That kite belonged to Liu Shidi, so he said it was his. The woman suddenly got all mad and said, 'How dare you?' and ordered her subordinate to take him away." "Just like that?" Wei Wuxian asked. The boys nodded. "We asked why they were taking Liu Shidi, and the woman just kept saying he'd committed a grave offense and harbored mutinous intent. She yelled for her lackeys to take him away. We couldn't do anything to stop them, so we ran back here." Jiancheng swore. "Not even a reason to detain someone. Are the Wens looking to be gods?" "Yeah, they make no sense at all." "Everyone stop," Wei Wuxian said. "The Wens will probably be knocking on our door soon. Don't let them hear anything that can be used against us. Let me ask you, that woman, she wasn't carrying a sword, right? Was she kind of pretty with a mole above her mouth?" "Yes, that's her," the group of Shidi said. Jiancheng spat hatefully. "Wen Liangxiu." "That—" Just then, a woman's cold voice was heard. "What's all the racket? Not even a day of quiet around here." With her purple robes aflutter, Madame Yu approached. Jinju and Yinju were dressed in full martial arts gear, following behind her and covering her left and right flank. "Mom, the Wens are here," Jiancheng called out to her. "They have Liu Shidi." "You're all so loud, I heard everything from inside," Madame Yu replied. "So what? He was seized, not killed. So quick to stomp your feet and grit your teeth. Is that how a future sect leader should act? Stay calm." She then turned to face the main gates that stood in front of the drill grounds. Over a dozen Wen cultivators filed in, all dressed in blazing sun uniforms. From behind the cultivators, a woman in colorful robes sashayed onto the grounds. She was lithe and graceful in figure, and charming in appearance. Her eyes reflected the bright and clear waters of autumn, and her lips were as red as the blazing fire with a tiny little black mole dotted above them. An exceptional beauty, except for the fact that she'd festooned herself with far too many gaudy hairpins and rings, as if she was trying her hardest to wear an entire jewelry shop, as well as flaunt all the favor her noblemen showed her. The result was incredibly tasteless. She was the one that Wei Wuxian had sent flying and spewing blood with a smack back at Xishan. Wang Lingjiao. Wang Lingjiao pursed her lips in a smile. "Madame Yu, I've come again." Madame Yu was expressionless. Seeming to think that speaking a single word to this woman would soil her mouth, she waited until Wang Lingjiao descended the steps from the main gates before she curtly demanded, Why did you seize a disciple from my Jiang clan of Yunmeng? Seize? Wang Lingjiao asked. You mean the one we arrested outside? It's a long story. Let's go inside and sit down first, then we'll talk about it. A servant such as this, walking through the front doors of a prominent clan without prior notice or any request for permission to enter. A servant then demanding and unapologetically to enter the main hall and sit down to talk. Madame Yu's face was growing progressively more frigid. Veins bulged slightly on the back of her fair hand, and the finger wearing Zidian's silver ring twitched. Go inside, sit down, and talk? She repeated. Of course, Wang Lingjiao said. The last time I came to deliver orders, I didn't have the time to sit and stay a while. Please, go ahead. When he heard the words orders, Jiangcheng snorted. Jinyu and Yinju's expressions were darkened with anger. But Wang Lingjiao was favored by Wen Chao, and they couldn't risk offending her. Which was why, though Madame Yu's expression was dripping with sneering disdain and her tone soaked with contempt, she still had no choice but to accept. Very well. Go in, then. Wang Lingjiao flashed a charming smile before she really did flounce right inside. Although she said that she wanted to go inside and sit, she didn't immediately take a seat. Instead, she strolled around Lotus Pier, ogling the grounds with rapt interest, giving commentary as she went. Lotus Pier really isn't bad. It's so big, but it's just that all the houses are real old. The wood is all black. What an ugly color. Not bright at all. Madame Yu, you're kind of failing as a mistress. Don't you know how to decorate? Hang some red gauze curtains next time. It'd be much better. Wang Lingjiao jabbed her finger all around and criticized as she walked, as if this was her own back garden. All the while Madame Yu's brows twitched non-stop, so much so that Wei Wuxian and Jiancheng suspected that she might go ballistic and kick off a killing spree at any moment. Once the commentary-filled tour had concluded, Wang Lingjiao finally took a seat in the main hall. Though no one had invited or conceded to her, she walked up to the head seat herself and presumptuously sat down. When no one came to attend her after she sat for a while, she frowned and smacked her palm on the table. Where is the tea? Although she was decked out in dazzling jewelry, her speech and behavior reflected no manners or education. What little grace she possessed was spoiled in hundreds of ways, but after that tour, no one was surprised. Madame Yu sat down in the second seat. The hems of her expensive purple robes and sleeves spread outward with a motion accentuating her slender waist and beautiful posture. Jinju and Yinju stood tall beside her, and mocking smiles were on their lips. There is no tea, Yinju answered. Pour it yourself if you want it. Wang Lingjiao's eyes widened in astonishment. Don't the Jiang servants do any work? The servants of the Jiang family have more important and serious matters to attend to, Jinju replied. There's no need to rely on an intermediary to fetch tea and water. Your own arms and legs are perfectly capable. Wang Lingjiao eyed the two girls up and down. And who are you two? My handmaidens, Madame Yu answered. Madame Yu, your Jiang clan is too outrageous, Wang Lingxiao said disdainfully. This won't do. Even handmaidens dare interrupt people in the main hall. Servants like those would have been disciplined at the Wen family house with a slap to the face. Saying that like you're not a servant yourself, Wei Wuxian thought. Madame Yu was completely unmoved. Jinju and Yinju are no ordinary servants. They have been by my side since they were young and serve no one besides myself. No one can slap their faces. It is forbidden. And besides, no one would dare. Madame Yu, what are you saying? Wang Lianzhu gasped. The hierarchy within a prominent clan must be clear enough to ensure no confusion. Servants ought to act like servants. When she heard servants ought to act like servants, Madame Yu looked like she couldn't have agreed more. She shot Wei Wuxian a look, then responded with surprising agreement in her haughty tone. Indeed. but then she immediately launched into questioning. For what reason have you seized my Jian-sect disciple? Madame Yu had best teach that boy clear boundaries, Wang Lianzhao replied. He harbors mutinous intent. I've already seized him and sent him to the proper authorities. Madame Yu arched her brows. Mutinous intent? Jiancheng couldn't help interrupting. What mutinous intent could Liao Shidi harbor? I've got proof, Wang Lianzhao declared. Bring it here. A Wen sect disciple brought over a kite. Wang Lingjiao waved it. This is the proof. Wei Wuxian scoffed. That kite's painted to look like one of your run-of-the-mill one-eyed monsters. What kind of proof is that? Wang Lingjiao sneered in reply. Do you think I'm blind? Look closer. Her vibrant red fingernails jabbed at the kite as she confidently delivered her analysis. What color is this kite? Gold. And what shape is the one-eyed monster? Round. And? Madame Yu pressed. And? Wang Liangzhao explained. Madame Yu, have you not noticed yet? What does a round and golden object resemble? The sun. Amid the bug-eyed looks all around, she smugly continued. Of all the ways to design a kite, why must his be a one-eyed monster? Why must it be painted gold? Could he not make it a different shape? A different color? Are you going to tell me that this is coincidence? I think not. He's obviously doing it on purpose. Shooting a kite designed to look like this can mean only one thing. Sun shooting. He wants to shoot down the sun. This is grave disrespect towards the Wen clan of Xinqian. Is that not harboring mutinous intent? Seeing how clever she considered her little performance and forced logic to be, Jiancheng could hold back no longer. Although the kite is gold and round, it's still far from being like a sun. How are they similar? It looks nothing like it. Based on your logic, we can't eat oranges either, Wei Wuxian added. Aren't oranges gold and round too? But I think you've eaten them more than once. Wang Lingxiao sent him a death glare. Madame Yu asked frostily, So you came here this time for the sake of a kite? Of course not, Wang Lingxiao assured her. I came this time to punish someone on behalf of the Wen clan and Wen Ganzi. Wei Wuxian's heart stopped for a second. As he suspected, Wang Lingjiao pointed at him. While Wen Ganzi was bravely facing the Zhanwu of slaughter at Mount Mushi, this boy took advantage of his distraction to make impertinent remarks and cause chaos, exhausting Wen Ganzi both physically and mentally. He nearly failed and even lost his sword. Listening to her spin false tales and ridiculous lies, Jiang Cheng laughed out of sheer anger. On the other hand, Wei Wuxian remembered that Jiang Fengmain had left earlier this morning. They probably waited until this time to come, or they intentionally lured Jiang Shushu out. But thank goodness, Wang Liangqiao continued. The heavens smile upon Wen Ganzi. Although he lost his sword, he still succeeded in slaying the Zhanwu of slaughter, despite the danger. But that boy cannot be tolerated. I've come today bearing an order from Wen Ganzi. Madame Yu must punish this person and make an example of him for all the Jiang clan of Yunmeng. Mom, Jiancheng pleaded. Quiet, Madame Yu barked at him. Wang Lingjiao was very pleased with Madame Yu's reaction. This Wei Ying, if my memory doesn't fail me, he is a servant of the Jiang clan, correct? Sect leader Jiang isn't with us right now, but I'm certain that Madame Yu understands the weight of this situation. If the Jiang clan of Yunmeng shields him, it would really make one wonder if certain rumors could be true. She sat there in the head seat where Jiang Fengmain always sat, giggling with a hand over her mouth. With a stormy face, Madame Yu shifted her gaze her way. Jian Cheng sensed what her words implied and exclaimed indignantly, What rumors? Wang Lingjiao giggled. What rumors do you think? Just sect leader's old love affair. Seeing this woman dare to invent lies about Jiang Fengmain to their faces, rage blazed up in Wei Wuxian. Angrily, he started, "You!" Unexpected pain shot through his back, and his knees buckled. Madame Yu had suddenly moved and lashed him with her whip. "Mom!" Jiancheng cried out. Madame Yu had already risen to her feet. Zidian had been unleashed into its whip form, and its sizzling lightning coursed in her cold, jade-like hands. "Jiancheng, move! Otherwise you'll kneel too." Wei Wuxian crawled up off the floor with difficulty. "Move, Jiancheng. Don't worry about it." Madame Yu whipped again, lashing him back to the floor. She gritted her teeth. "I've said again and again, for how long, that you unruly thing! One day you'll bring disaster to our Zheng clan." Wei Wuxian shoved Jiancheng away. He took the lashings with gritted teeth, not moving and not speaking. While Madame Yu always pelted him with hostile words, she had never really hit him before. 2 or 3 lashes at most, or being made to kneel or confined indoors, and it never took Jiang Fengming long to release him from that. But this time he took dozens of hits from that whip. Each lash was so hard on his back that it burned with pain until he was numb. It was hard, but he had to endure. If he wasn't punished right now to Wang Lingjiao's satisfaction, to the satisfaction of the Wen clan of Qishan, then the whole mess wouldn't end here. Wang Lingjiao watched with a broad smile on her face. Once Madame Yu was done lashing, Zidian swiftly retracted, leaving Wei Wuxian kneeling on the floor. His upper body swayed forward, and he almost fell over. Jiancheng went to help him, but Madame Yu scolded him sharply. "Stand aside! Do not help him!" Jinju and Yinju firmly restrained Jiancheng. Wei Wuxian held on for a little while longer, but then collapsed heavily on the ground, prone and unmoving. Wan Lingjiao was astonished. "That's it?" Madame Yu humphed. "What do you think?" "That's all?" Wang Lingjiao prompted her again. Madame Yu arched her brows. "What do you mean, that's all? What grade of weapon do you judge Zidian to be? He won't recover from this lashing even in a month. He'll feel this for some time." "But he'll still recover," Wang Lingjiao said. Jiancheng demanded angrily, "What more do you want?" "Madame Yu, this is meant to be a punishment. He must remember this lesson forever and regret his actions for the rest of his life, so he doesn't commit the same wrongs again," Wang Lingjiao lectured her. "If he only suffers a few lashes, he'll be out and about again once he recuperates. What kind of punishment is that? Boys his age never remember the pain once their injuries heal. It doesn't really work at all." "What do you want, then?" Madame Yu demanded. "Chop off his legs and endure he'll never be out and about again?" "Wen Gonzi is kind," Wang Lingjiao assured. "He would never order something so brutal as chopping off both legs. Just his right arm. Then Wen Gonzi will say no more about it." This woman was a donkey in a lion's skin. Using Wen Chao as her backing, she was shamelessly out to avenge herself for the blow that Wei Wuxian dealt her inside Mount Mushi's underground cave. Madame Yu glanced at Wei Wuxian askance. "Chop off his right arm?" "That's right," Wang Lingxiao replied. Yu Ziyuan rose to her feet and slowly paced round Wei Wuxian, seeming to be considering the idea. Wei Wuxian was in so much pain that he could barely lift his head. Jiancheng struggled free of Jinshu and Yinshu, and fell on his knees to cover Wei Wuxian with his own body. Mom, please don't! Things weren't like that at all!" Wang Lingjiao raised her voice. "Jiangjiao Ganzi, are you accusing me of fabricing?" Wei Wuxian lay prone on the ground, unable to even flip himself over. "Fabricing? What's fabricing?" Then it suddenly came to him. "You mean fabrication. This woman used to be a handmaiden of Wen Chao's wife. She'd never been educated, and her vocabulary is limited. In going about feigning literacy, she used an unfamiliar word and mispronounced it while pretending to understand what she was babbling about." The current situation was dire, but in times like these, the human mind becomes unable to focus amidst the chaos and the imagination runs wild. So once the woman's gaffe clicked with Wei Wuxian, he found it quite funny. Wang Lingjiao had no idea that she'd made a fool of herself. Think carefully, Madame Yu. Our Wen clan of Qingshan will definitely follow up on this. Chop off his arm and let me bring it back with my report, and the Jiang clan of Yunmeng will be perfectly fine. Otherwise, things won't go as well next time, when Ganzi asks questions. Madame Yu's eyes flashed with a chilling glint. Jinju, Yinju, go. Close the door, she said darkly. Don't let others see the blood. Jinju and Yinju would never disobey a command from Madame Yu. They answered a bristly yes in unison, and then went to firmly shut the doors of the main hall. When Wei Wuxian heard the doors close and saw the light on the ground vanish, fear surged to his head. Is she really going to chop off my arm? Jiancheng was terrified. He hugged his mother's leg and begged her, Mom! Mom? What are you doing? Please don't cut off his arm. After the fear passed, Wei Wuxian clenched his teeth and steadied his heart with painful resolve. That's fine. As long as I can trade it for peace at home. Take it for all I care. At worst, I'll use my fucking left hand to practice the sword from now on. Wang Lingjiao clapped. Madame Yu, I knew you would be the most loyal of subordinates to the Wen clan of Jishen. Somebody come hold this boy down. No need for you to use your hands, Madame Yu said, and Jinju and Yinju walked over. Well now, are you having your two handmaidens hold him down? That works too. Mom, listen to me, Jiancheng cried. Please, I beg of you, don't chop off his arm. If father finds out... It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned Jiang Fengmain. The moment he did, Madame Yu's face abruptly changed colors. Do not mention your father in front of me. So what if he finds out? What's he gonna do? Kill me? Wang Lingjiao was delighted. Oh, Madame Yu, I admire you so much. Looks like we'll get along very well at the Overwatch office from now on. Madame Yu yanked back the hem of her purple silk skirt as well as the leg Jiancheng was clinging to. She turned around and raised her eyebrows. The Overwatch office? Wang Lingjiao grinned. Yes, the Overwatch office. That's the second important matter that I came to Yunmeng for. The Wen clan of Qishen's new inspection order. We'll be building an Overwatch office in every city. I declare that from today onward, Lotus Pier is the Wen clan's Yunmeng Overwatch office. No wonder she had been wandering around Lotus Pier earlier, making herself at home. She truly had claimed Lotus Pier as her new home in Yunmeng. Jiancheng's eyes were red. What Overwatch office? This is my home. Wang Lingjiao furrowed her brows. Madame Yu, you have to manage your son properly too. All other cultivation clans have been the Wen clan's subjects for centuries. How can we say things like, my home, your home, in front of the Wen clan's envoy? I was hesitant at first, unsure if Lotus Pier would bear the responsibility of being the Overwatch office, what with it being such an old place and all, and having produced a few rebels. But after I saw how well you obeyed my orders, not to mention how well your temper suits my taste, I've decided to give this honor. She hadn't finished when Madame Yu slapped her soundly across the face. Both the power of the slap and the noise it produced were earth-shattering. Wang Lingjiao was sent whirling around a few times from the force before she fell onto the ground, her nose bleeding profusely and making a mess of the floor. Her pretty eyes were round and wide with shock. There were a number of Wen clan disciples inside the main hall. Their faces changed color, and they all drew their swords. With the wave of Madame Yu's hand, Zidian shot forth. It slashed a half-circle of blinding purple light and felled every target within range. With poise and elegance, Madame Yu walked to Wang Lingjiao's side, looking down at her with palpable disdain. She leaned down and grabbed a handful of Wang Lingjiao's hair, hauling her up to deliver another furious slap. How dare you, lowly maid! Her tolerance had run dry. Her savage expression was inches from Wang Lingjiao's lopsided and swollen face, which was writ large with terror. Wang Lingxiao started shrieking horribly. Ignoring the noise, Madame Yu grabbed her and gave her another slap, which brought her ear-piercing screams to an abrupt halt. "Before you beat a dog, check who its master is," she bellowed. "You barge into my home and see fit to punish my people on my behalf? Who are you to act so insolent here?" She heaved Wang Lingjiao's head aside and took her handkerchief to wipe her hands, as if disgusted to have touched such filth. Jinju and Yinju stood behind their mistress, wearing the same mocking smile as her. Wang Lingjiao's hands shook as she cupped her face. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stammered threats. You dare do this to me? The Wen clan of Qixuan and the Wang clan of Yingquan wouldn't let you get away with this." Madame Yu tossed the handkerchief to the ground and kicked Wang Lingjiu back to the floor alongside it. "Shut your mouth," she ordered. "You lowly maid. My Yu clan of Mianshan is an esteemed family with centuries of history. Never have I heard some Wang clan of Yingxuan. What vulgar hole did they crawl from? Are they all worthless like you? Hierarchy. I'll teach you what hierarchy is. I am superior, and you are inferior." To the side, Jianzheng was helping the prone Wei Wuxian to his feet. Both were completely dumbstruck at the scene that was being played out. Madame Yu turned her head and signaled with her eyes. Jingju and Yingzhu understood immediately and drew their long swords. They circled the hall, moving swiftly and mercilessly to deliver a coup de grace to each of the dozen-some Wen disciples. Seeing that her own turn was coming up, Wang Lingjiao sputtered threats as she put up a last-ditch struggle. Do you think you can silence me? You think Wen Gunzi doesn't know where I am right now? You think he'll let you off when he finds out?" Yinzu sneered. "I am close to Wen Gunzi, very close. I'm his woman," Wang Lingjiao exclaimed. "If you dare lay your hands on me, he'll—" Madame Yu raised her hand and slapped her again. "He'll what?" she mocked. "Chop off our hands or our legs? Burn down our residence? Send people to raze Lotus Spear to the ground? Establish an Overwatch office here?" Jinzhu approached with a sword in hand. Fear filled Wang Lingjiao's eyes. She cowered and scrambled backwards, kicking out her legs as she shrieked, "Men, help! Wenzuliu, save me!" Madame Yu's expression hardened. She stomped her heel down hard on Wang Lingjiao's wrist and drew her sword. Just as the blade was about to come slashing down, it suddenly struck back with a clang. Wei Wuxian and Jianzheng turned their heads to look. The doors to the hall blew thunderously open as a tall, strapping man broke through. He was dressed all in black and wore a sullen expression. It was Wen Chao's personal bodyguard, the one with remarkable cultivation, Wen Zuliu. With her sword knocked out of her hand, Madame Yu sent Zidian level with her chest. "Core-melting hand?" Wen Zuliu coldly returned the courtesy. "Purple spider." Madame Yu's foot was still firmly planted on Wang Lingjiao's wrist. The latter's face was contorted in pain, and tears and snot flowed freely as she wailed, Wenzuliu, hurry up and save me!" Madame Yu snorted. "Wenzuliu? Core-melting hand, isn't your original name Zuliu? Your surname clearly isn't Wen, and yet you insist on changing it at any cost. Look at the lot of you, falling all over yourselves to do it. Is the Wen dog's name that valuable? Forgetting your roots and turning your back on your ancestry. How laughable!" Unmoved, Wen Zuliu replied stoically, "Each for his own master." They had only exchanged a few words, but already Wang Lingjiao had had enough and started shrieking again. "Wen Zuliu! Can't you see the state I'm in right now? Why are you still wasting time chit-chatting with her instead of killing her? Wen Gunzi told you to protect me, and this is how you do it? You'd better watch it or I'll report you and there'll be hell to pay." Madame Yu ground her heel into her wrist, and Wang Lingjiao screeched in pain and burst into more tears. Wen Zuliu wrinkled his brow. It was on Wen Rohan's orders that he protected Wen Chao, whose character he disliked to begin with. How could he have known that things would only get worse from there, when Wen Chao assigning him to protect Wang Lingjiu? The woman was pompous, boastful, and stupid, not to mention vicious, all of which incurred Wen Zulu's displeasure. But unhappy as he was, he couldn't defy Wen Rohan and Wen Chao's orders and crush her like an ant. Fortunately, Wang Lingjiao detested Wen Zhuliu in equal measure and ordered him to only follow her from afar. He was not permitted to show himself before her unless she ordered him to, out of sight, out of mind. But the woman was now on the verge of losing her life, and Wen Chao would definitely fly off the handle and make him pay if he stood by and did nothing. And if Wen Chao wouldn't let the matter drop, neither would Wen Rohan. "Pardon my offense," Wen Zhuliu said. "Nothing but posturing," Madame Yu scoffed. Zidian whirled towards Wen Zhuliu, who raised his large hand and seized it without the slightest concern. In its whip form, Zidian coursed with currents of spiritual power. Its intensity and lethality were under the absolute control of its master, and Madame Yu had long burned to slaughter every last one of these Wen dogs. Furthermore, she was deeply apprehensive of Wen Zhuliu. The current of spiritual power that hurtled at him was thus deadly fierce, and yet Wen Zhuliu seized it effortlessly. Zidian had never encountered such an opponent in all its years of existence. Seeing the whip be seized, Madame Yu stalled for a fleeting second, and Wang Lingjiao used this chance to scramble away. She fumbled a signal flare from her robes and shook it twice. The flash of fire shot forth from the tube with a sharp whistle and burst through the wooden window to explode in the sky. She fished out a second, and then a third. With her hair disheveled, she rambled, "Here! Here! Come over here! All of you come here!" Gritting his teeth against the pain, Wei Wuxian gave Jiancheng a shove. "Don't let her send off any more flares!" Jiancheng let go of Wei Wuxian and rushed to chase after Wang Lingjiao. But Wen Zhuliu rushed Madame Yu in that moment, and it looked like his blow was going to land. "Mom!" cried Jiancheng. He immediately abandoned Wang Lingjiao and threw himself over. Wen Zhuliu didn't even look back as he struck out with his palm. "Not by a long shot." The blow hit Jiancheng's shoulder, and the blood burst from his mouth. The grayish-blue night sky was filled with resplendent light and shrill whistles. Wang Lingjiao had set off all the signal flares. Seeing Jiancheng injured, Madame Yu howled with rage. In a split second, the light of Zidian's spiritual power amplified enormously, flaring so bright that it was dazzlingly white. The sudden discharge from Zidian flung Wen Zhuliu against the wall hard. Jinzhu and Yinzhu each drew long whips sizzling with electricity and began to engage him in combat. The handmaidens had been very close to Madame Yu ever since they were young, and trained under the same teacher, so their combat attacks were a force to be reckoned with. Using the time this bought her, Madame Yu lifted the immobilized Jiancheng and Wei Wuxian, one under each arm, and dashed out of the hall. There were still many sect disciples gathered in the drill grounds. Madame Yu barked, "Fall into formation and gear up!" She rushed to the dock, carrying the two boys. There were always 7 or 8 small boats moored at the Lotus Pier dock, which were used by the young disciples to roam the lake and pick lotuses. Madame Yu tossed them into the boat and jumped on as well, then grabbed Jiancheng's hand to help him calm his qi. Since he was not severely injured, Jiancheng only coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Mom, what should we do?" he asked. "What do you mean, what should we do?" Madame Yu replied. "Can't you see? They've come prepared. This battle was unavoidable. A horde of Wen dogs will descend at any moment. Leave now, both of you." "What about Shiji?" Wei Wuxian asked. "Shiji went to Meixian the day before yesterday. If she comes back here—" "Shut your mouth!" Madame Yu snapped at him. "This is all because of you, you little— This is all your fault." Wei Wuxian could only fall silent. Madame Yu removed Zidian's silver ring from her right finger and slipped it onto the same finger of Jiancheng's hand. Stunned, Jiancheng asked, "Mom, Why are you giving me Gideon? It's yours now, and I've given it to you, Madame Yu replied. Gideon has already acknowledged you as its master. Jiancheng looked lost. Mom, aren't you coming with us? Madame Yu gazed at his face. All of a sudden, she pulled him into a hug. She pressed a couple of kisses into his hair as she held him in her arms. My dear boy, she muttered. She hugged him so tight it was as if she yearned to turn Jiancheng into a tiny baby once more and stuff him back into her belly, so no one could ever hurt him or tear them apart. Jiancheng had never been hugged by his mother like this before, let alone kissed in such a way. His head lay buried in her chest, his eyes wide in shock. He was at a complete loss of how to react. One arm still hugging Jiancheng, Madame Yu seized Wei Wuxian by the collar with her free hand, looking like she wanted to choke him to death. You damn brat, she hissed through clenched teeth. Hateful. How absolutely hateful. Look at the disaster you've brought in our family. Wei Wuxian's chest heaved violently, and words failed him. This time he was not forcing himself to endure in silence or mentally grumbling retorts. He was truly rendered speechless. Jiancheng anxiously asked again, Mom, aren't you coming with us? Madame Yu released him at once and pushed him onto Wei Wuxian. She leapt onto the dock, and the little boat rocked side to side on the lake from the action. Jiancheng finally understood. Jinzu, Yinzu, the disciples, and the spiritual weapons and heirlooms had been passed down through the Jiang clan of Yunmeng for generations. They were all still in Lotus Pier. There was no way to evacuate all or even any of them on such short notice. A fierce battle would no doubt break out very soon. As the mistress of the house, Madame Yu could not retreat, but she feared for her son. In an act of selfishness and desperation, she was forcing them to escape. Knowing the extreme danger that waited after they parted, Jiancheng was stricken by panic. He stood up and attempted to follow her off the boat, but a current suddenly sparked from Gideon. It transformed into an electric cord that wrapped the both of them securely on the boat, rendered completely immobile. Mom, what are you doing? Jiancheng cried out. Stop making a fuss, Madame Yu said. It will release its grip when you reach a safe place. Gideon will protect you if you encounter any danger along the way. Don't come back. Head straight for Mieshen and look for your sister. She then turned and pointed at Wei Wuxian, instructing him sharply. Wei Ying, heed me. Protect Jiancheng well. Even in death, you have to keep him safe. Do you understand? Madame Yu, Wei Wuxian called out. Do you understand? Madame Yu raged. Save me all of your other nonsense. I am only asking you one thing. Do you understand? Unable to break free from Gideon, Wei Wuxian could only give a heavy nod. Mom, Jiancheng shouted. Father isn't back yet. Whatever happens, can't we face it together? At the mention of Jiang Fengmain, Madame Yu's eyes seemed to redden for a moment. After a moment, she loudly cursed. If he doesn't come back, then so be it. Do you think I can't manage without him? She brandished her sword and cut the rope that tethered the boat to the dock, then gave the side of the boat a heavy kick. This kick, paired with the rapid currents of the river and the strong winds, immediately sent the boat drifting out dozens of meters. It whirled around a few times before beginning to sail smoothly and swiftly down the center of the river. Jiancheng let loose a heartbreaking wail. Mom! He called for her dozens of times, but Madame Yu and Lotus Pier receded further and further into the distance. After the boat had drifted further away, Madame Yu walked back through the main gates of Lotus Pier with a flash of purple robes, longsword in hand. Both Jiancheng and Wei Wuxian did all they could to struggle free. Gideon did not loosen an inch, even as it began to dig into their flesh from their attempts. Jiancheng howled with furious madness as he thrashed. Why is it still not breaking? Come on, break! Break! Wei Wuxian had just taken a dozen lashes from Gideon and was still in agony. He knew that it was impossible to break free, that it was all in vain. Remembering that Jiancheng was sustaining injuries as well, he endured the pain and tried to speak. Jiancheng, calm down. Madame Yu might not lose against Core Melting Hand. Didn't she beat Wen Ziliu back earlier? How can I calm down? How? Jiancheng roared. Even if she kills Wen Ziliu, that bitch Wang Lingjiao already shot off all those signals. What if the Wen dogs see that and send forces to besiege our home? Wei Wuxian knew very well that it was impossible for him to calm down, but there had to be at least one clear head between the two of them. Just as he was about to continue talking, his eyes suddenly lit up. Jiang Shushu, he shouted. Jiang Shushu's back! Sure enough, another vessel on the river was sailing towards them. Jiang Fengming stood at the bow of the large boat, his robes flapping in the sailing wind as he gazed in Lotus Pier's direction. There were over a dozen sect disciples milling on deck as well. Father! Father! Jiancheng shouted. Jiang Fengming had seen them as well, and appeared slightly shocked at the sight. One of the sect disciples took out an oar to approach. Still in the dark about what was happening, Jiang Fengming asked in astonishment, "A Chang? A Ying? What happened to you two?" The boys of Lotus Pier often played weird games. It was a common sight to see them pretending to be bloody corpses, sprawled face down in the water. Jiang Fengming, uncertain if they were in the middle of a new game, didn't realize the gravity of the situation. Jiancheng, however, was so happy that he was driven to tears. With panicked urgency, he urged, Father, free us, quickly! That is your mother's Zidian, and Zidian knows who its masters are, Jiang Fengming said. It probably won't allow me to. He reached out to Zidian as he spoke, and had only just touched it when it unexpectedly retracted itself obediently. It instantly transformed into a ring and coiled around one of his fingers. Jiang Fengming promptly froze at the sight. Zidian was a top-grade spiritual weapon that belonged to Yu Ziyuan, and her will was its first and foremost command. It could acknowledge multiple masters, but in an order of hierarchy, and Madame Yu was undoubtedly and undisputedly primary master. She had commanded it to bind Jiancheng until he was safe, which was why Jiancheng could not break free even though he was also one of its recognized masters. It appeared that Jiang Fengming had been recognized as Zidian's secondary master, though there was no telling when that had happened. It had judged them safe in his presence and therefore loosened the binding. However, Madame Yu had never mentioned that she had instructed Zidian to acknowledge Jiang Fengming as a master. Finally separated, Jiancheng and Wei Wuxian threw themselves apart and collapsed. What is going on? Jiang Fengming questioned. Why were you two sitting in a boat bound by Zidian? Jiancheng clutched onto him as though he were a lifeline. Today the Wens came to our home. Mom got into a dispute with them and started fighting with Core Melting Hand. I'm scared she'll be outnumbered. Someone set off a bunch of flares, and there might be even more enemies on the way. Father, let's hurry back together and help her. Let's go, now! The sect disciples all appeared shocked to hear this. Core Melting Hand? Jiang Fengming repeated. Jiancheng confirmed. That's right, Father, he... Before he could finish, there was a flash of purple light, and Jiancheng and Wei Wuxian were once again bound. Both of them fell back into the boat in the same position as before. Jiancheng was stunned. Father? I will be back, Jiang Fengming said. You two will leave. Do not look back and do not return to Lotus Pier. Once ashore, immediately find your way to Miexian and look for your sister and grandmother. Jiang Shushu, Wei Wuxian cried out. Once the shock passed, Jiancheng frantically kicked at the side of the boat, sending it rocking incessantly. Father, release me! Let me go! I will go back and find San Nianzi, Jiang Fengming stated. Jiancheng glared at him. Can't we go back to find her together? Jiang Fengming gazed steadily at him. He suddenly reached out. His hand paused in midair for a moment before slowly stroking at Jiancheng's head. Chang, be well. Jiang Shushu, Wei Wuxian pleaded. He'll never be okay if anything happens to you. Jiang Fengming shifted his gaze over to Wei Wuxian. Ying, look after Chang. He returned once more to his large vessel. Both boats brushed past each other, then drifted further and further apart. Jiancheng screamed in despair. Dad! Dad! End of part 1.